Good day everyone, we are Group 2 and we will be discussing some information on plagiarism. This presentation will go through the definition of plagiarism in detail, as well as subtopics related to plagiarism, such as form of plagiarism, plagiarism laws and regulation, unintentional plagiarism, and some common examples of plagiarism. So sit back, relax, and watch while we learn about plagiarism.
To further understand the topic, let me give you a short background about plagiarism. Plagiarism has indeed likely existed since the beginning of language and art. It seems to assume that someone has been doing so for so long as there have been words to repeat and art to emulate. While claiming credit for someone else's work is unquestionably ancient, plagiarism as a concept and practice has evolved significantly.
According to Jonathan Bailey, though the exact year the word plagiarism entered the English language is unknown, it is largely assumed to have occurred around 1601, when playwright and starist Ben Jonson coined the term plagiary to denote literary theft. Plagiarism would be a contentious issue for the next 150 years, particularly in academic and professional settings, but it would also remain a difficult endeavor.
Greetings, my fellow students. I'm Jacob CINCO, and I'm here to present the forms of plagiarism. As tackled by one of my groupmates, plagiarism is when you take someone else's words and claim it as your own. Today, the one that I will discuss to you are the different forms of plagiarism. But first, let us know what are the forms of plagiarism. Plagiarism has 8 forms, namely complete plagiarism, source-based, direct, self or auto, paraphrasing, mosaic, accidental plagiarism, and lastly, inaccurate authorship. Starting off our discussion, we have complete plagiarism. Complete plagiarism is the act of submitting the work of someone else under your name. It is the most serious form of plagiarism, in which a researcher plagiarizes a work written by someone else and submits it under his or her own name. Moving on to the next form, we have the source-based plagiarism. It is when a writer uses an outdated, non-existent source. Another instance of this is when a researcher uses secondary data but only references the primary source. Next form is what we call direct plagiarism. It is a form of plagiarism when a word-for-word copying of content from another document is present. It's also known as verbatim plagiarism, and it happens when an author duplicates another author's content without using quotation marks and passes it off as his or her own. The fifth form of plagiarism uses a significant portion of your own work without proper acknowledgement, namely self or auto-plagiarism. When an author reuses major chunks of his or her previously published work without attribution, this is known as self or auto-plagiarism. Another form of plagiarism is called paraphrasing plagiarism. It is where a writer makes a tiny adjustment and take from someone else's work. This form of plagiarism occurs when the words alter but the original concept remains the same. Third to the last, we have the mosaic plagiarism. It is a form of plagiarism where it includes phrases or material from someone else in your work. Because it interweaves someone else's phrases inside its own study, it may be more difficult to spot. Patchwork plagiarism is another term for purposeful and dishonest plagiarism. Moving on, A form of plagiarism that neglects results in unintentional paraphrasing or copying is called accidental plagiarism. There is no excuse for plagiarism, whether intentional or not, and the penalties are generally the same. Plagiarism can be inadvertent if it occurs as a result of negligence, mistake, or unintended paraphrase, and students are more prone to do so. And last but not the least, we have the inaccurate authorship. It is present when ownership rather than collaborator acknowledgement and vice versa. Even if the contributors are not recognized as authors, it is recommended that they be acknowledged at the time of publishing.
Good day, everyone. I am GENZY BOLIMA.
I am KARL GONZALES, and we will discuss some laws or regulations connected to plagiarism.
Plagiarism is the same as copyright in the Philippines, and it could be considered a crime under Republic Act 10175 Cybercrime Law. However, according to the Department of Justice, plagiarism is not a crime, but it is the same as copyright violation. Plagiarism carries a sentence of 6 years in prison and a fine of 50,000 to 150,000 pesos, which is equal to $1,200 to $3,600.
I'll offer you another example to help you grasp what plagiarism is. The Republic Act No. 8792, often known as the Electronic Commerce Act, was enacted in the Philippines at 2000. It is the legislation that protects an individual against scammers, hackers, and cybercrimes connected to online fraud. RA 8792 is an act providing for the recognition and use of electronic commercial and non-commercial transactions penalty for unlawful use. This legislation protects us from those who will use our personal information for their own gain. That is why this legislation is considered plagiarism, because it takes someone's personal information and claims it as their own in order to meet their own demands. That is why you should always think before you click. Thank you.
I hope you guys learned something new about plagiarism.
Always bear in mind that don't plagiarize. Advocate originality and cite your references. Thank you.
Unintentional plagiarism is when a person refuses to fulfill appropriate citation procedures without the full intention to cheat. Cite a source that is not common knowledge, quote an author's exact words, paraphrase or summarize in your own words even if documented, are examples of unintentional plagiarism. Unintentional plagiarism is a serious breach of Jackson State's academic integrity, and misuse of the rules is not an excuse for plagiarizing.
Presenting our examples in this topic, me, BIANCA AMANTE, and DARIUS CRUZ will give the brief narrative of each example that we have given.
For our first example, the case of the iconic Pilipinas kay Ganda logo. The tourist tagline Pilipinas kay Ganda drew criticism a week after its launch in 2010 because its logo showed striking similarities to Poland's Polska, from the font and the colors to the use of a tree. Filipinos have mocked the DOT's hired advertising agency because of the copied logo. Vicente Enteng Romano III, DOT Undersecretary, apologized to President Benigno Aquino III and the public for the controversy. Due to this case, the tagline Pilipinas kay Ganda was dropped and replaced by It's More Fun in the Philippines slogan, which became an internet sensation. Now, for our next example, Bianca will explain it for you.
Thank you, Darius, for giving us the summary of the first example. For the other examples, I will give the brief descriptions for it. The famous fashion brand stealing the designs of the small business artist, it is obvious from the case title that this type of issue is not new to the fashion industry. Roberts, the artist of the stolen design, posted about product copying pertaining to the brand Old Navy. It is said that Old Navy copied the shirt product that she sells, but unfortunately the text that was included on that shirt design was not officially trademarked by her. Even though it is not trademarked, Old Navy still removes the product on their website. Also, because fashion is not fully protected under American copyright law, large brands can get away with stealing designs from smaller businesses. The last case, the plagiarism case of Alex Haley. Alex Haley is widely known for his Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, Roots. This book was eventually adapted into a popular television series. Harold Kurlander accused Haley of stealing scenes from The African and using them in Roots. In 1978, he was sued and eventually acknowledged plagiarizing the information.
Thank you for that, Bianca. And that's it for our examples. I hope you understand the different cases that we include for this topic.